everybody, it's Rachel here again today for another quick little tip. Today I'm going to show you how to make a mold for a sand cast. So I made this wax mold for an engagement ring, and now I need to get it into a mold so that we can cast it with the torch. We won't be doing the torch part today, but we'll get to that at another video and I'll kind of explain that to you. So you'll need a mold, some Delft Clay, some talc powder, and various tools to make sure that everything is nice and set in the mold. First thing you're going to want to do is pull your mold apart, and you start with the male part of the mold. It has this little rim around it, and you want that to be upside down. So once you have that upside down, you basically take your clay and you get it into, just kind of press it in there at first. And then when you got about half of it in there, you tamp it down with a small hammer. You just tamp this to make sure there's no big gaps in the sand so that when you cast, you end up having a really nice, smooth surface to cast onto. You don't want to really hit it hard. You just want to tamp it nice and soft. And then you just keep filling it up and repeating that process until this side of the mold is full. Once you have a nice packed mound of sand, you want to take your putty knife and just scrape the bottom off so that it's nice and even. As you can see, we have a nice even mold. So now you would turn that right side up. I always scrape my extra sand back into my bucket just to keep my work area clean. So once you have this, what you're going to want to do now is you're going to want to take your talc powder, enough to cover the surface. This will keep your wax mold from sticking to the sand. So you kind of spread that around. Then you take your mold. Now you want to put your mold in to where there's no undercuts. I know that kind of probably sounds a little crazy. So I'm going to do the bigger end on the bottom. So you want to put it in pretty straight, and you just gently push it into your mold. So that you have a nice fit. I then go in, put some more talc powder on there so that you get some on the top of your mold, the wax mold, so that it won't stick, the sand won't stick to your wax area when you put the top part on. So now you want to make the top of the mold. Each mold has one of these little lines on both sides. You want to make sure that both of those lines are lined up perfectly. This will help you put your mold back together once you take the piece out. You'll see what I'm talking about later. So once you have that there, you grab some more of your sand and you put that in the top part. And again, you just go through the process of tamping it down until you have a full mold. Once you have the sand in the top and the bottom, now what you have to do is you have to make a sprue. So you've got your two lines. You gently kind of wiggle this guy apart like so. And as you can see, you have an indent of where that part goes. You pop this dude out very gently. You don't want to have to go in and fix a bunch of stuff on your mold, on the sand part of the mold. So you gently remove that guy. So now, once you have that, you've got to decide where do you want your sprue to go. I'm going to do it in the smaller section. It gives the metal a little bit less time to have to travel through there, so when you're pouring the metal, it doesn't cool as fast. Gives you more time to get to your mold. First thing you're going to do, I forgot one of my tools. So the first thing you're going to want to do is determine where you want your metal to go into the mold. And for me, just a rule of thumb is I want the metal to go into the biggest area first, and then it will fill those smaller areas and then backfill up to the bigger area. So I always start my sprue in the biggest area, which is going to be right here. So basically the sprue is the hole that the metal will go through to pour into the mold. So what I do is I gently pop a hole in here. So you end up with something like that. Then what you're going to do is take your Exacto knife. You have to make a spout that makes the metal want to go down that hole when you pour it. Basically, you want the path of least resistance for your metal. Even though the metal is liquid, it will cool as you're pouring, and so it's really important to make sure that you have really smooth edges on your molds, nothing where the metal can kind of get caught up and hung up and not want to pour properly. Then I take a paintbrush and get any little debris out of there so that there's nothing for the metal, the molten metal, to hang up on. So now that you have your spout, this is really important. Don't ever forget to do this. You're going to want to vent the actual inside, because as the metal pours in there, the air that's in those voids needs somewhere to go, and so you have to have vent. Actually, I take this little piece of wire that I made and I punch some holes and kind of wiggle it around to make the hole a little bigger. I do at least 4, sometimes more depending on how complicated the wax mold is. So you have your, you'll see them on this side, you have your holes for the vents, and then you take your Exacto knife and you run your Exacto knife from the void where the mold is at down to those little holes to create a pocket where the air can escape, or a channel where the air can escape. Now once I have my air vents, I kind of just go back in here, and anything that got messed up while doing the vents or the sprue, I just kind of go in and gently fix those things so that when I pour, the metal goes exactly where I want it to. Now the reason you line this up with the 2 lines, this is the important part here. When you put this back together, you want to make sure that those 2 lines are aligned again so that you're not pouring your piece in 2 different directions. Do a little extra cleanup here, get that out of the way. So now you're ready to pour. If you guys have any other questions, or if there's something that you'd really like to know about, send me an email or a text message and I'll try to make a video on that. I hope that you guys found this helpful or enjoyed it, and I will see you soon.